Hi, everyone. This is your friendly neighborhood podcaster, Scott Moore, and you're watching the SMC Journal podcast, where this show is all about performance engineering in IT today. So, as we move into site reliability engineering, not just performance engineering, resiliency, reliability, that becomes the focus. The golden signals really talk more about holistically how reliable can we make the application. And if it doesn't perform well or there's an outage under load, obviously it's not resilient. But that has really come up in the recent years, and I've heard more about resiliency probably in the last 24 months than I've heard in the last 10 years, because we've had an emergence of commercializing chaos testing and chaos engineering. And so I wanted to have somebody on who could talk to chaos testing as well as a product that we could use and see a demo of where they're actually working hand in hand with load testing as well as chaos testing. And the first vendor that came to mind was Micro Focus. So I decided to contact David McLeish and say, why don't you come on the show and talk about this new version of LoadRunner that's out right now that is integrated with Gremlin. I wanted to actually see a demo of it myself, so I said, come on the show and let's talk about it. And since they are a sponsor, I think that would be appropriate, don't you? In fact, Micro Focus is one of our main sponsors. They are the maker of LoadRunner Professional Enterprise Cloud and Developer, and they have the largest community of practitioners in the performance space in the world. You can check them out at the QR code by scanning that, or just go to community.microfocus.com. Look at the LoadRunner page that has the whole family of products on their performance engineering site on microfocus.com. And they also have a nice playlist of performance engineering videos that you can look at, very educational and highly recommend. This show is also sponsored by Supervisor. Why don't you stop losing money on that slow website? With Supervisor, you can continuously track the performance of your site, the code, and your host. Predict your page load speed under higher volumes with an easy one-click load testing solution, which you can find out more about at supervisor.com. I want to also tell you about my friend Amit Patel and his crew at Total Performance Consulting. Now, I've known these guys for several years now. They provide very high quality performance engineers who know automation, they know development. They've been in operation since 2006, and they have hundreds of years of combined experience helping tons of companies out there tackle very hard problems and challenges. So I know they can help you, whether it's with performance testing, analysis, monitoring, or just getting your CI/CD pipeline set up for load testing. They can help you and your company keep, and extend your competitive edge. So check them out at totalperform.com. And with that, we'll get right into the interview with David around chaos testing. Mr. David McLeish, how are you, sir?
Hey Scott, keeping well, and thanks for having me on again.
Awesome. Well, David, you're the product manager of performance engineering there at Micro Focus, and you are doing a lot with LoadRunner and Gremlin these days, I understand.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so
that's correct. We've established a new partnership there. Yeah.
I have been having a lot of requests coming in about, Scott, can you talk about chaos engineering, how it relates to load testing and performance engineering? Should it be part of that? Help us define it, and what products should we be using if we're interested in going that route? So that's one reason why I wanted to have you on the show. But I want to
Mhm.
start with the high level view of chaos engineering. So I first heard about this when Netflix introduced the Symbian
Mhm.
army to the world, and people started taking chaos monkey and different things. I remember there
Yeah,
was a chaos gorilla too, or something of that nature. And
yeah, I
anyway,
think there's.
I said this is a very interesting concept, and I thought it interesting that Netflix of all companies would introduce that to the world,
Mhm.
which they had some really talented engineers. So can you define at a high level what is chaos engineering?
So chaos is about trying to introduce a disruption event into your environment, but introduce it in a way that actually goes against the name. You're injecting chaos, but it's not just throwing chaos out there. It's targeting services or other parts of your infrastructure that you know that may not be covered by a traditional performance test. It could be covered, and we'll get on to that later. But there's a lot of overhead and administration, maintain and those scripts and continuously update. So chaos is about introducing these events and then testing how resilient your system is, and it's either resilient and your service stays up and there's no effect on your production services, or it's apart and then a bit of chaos then unleashed from that. And really, it's about doing this in a controlled fashion where you're in control of what could happen whenever a key service goes down. So think of someone like if someone has a shopping cart for financial transactions or a shop front, and if your database goes down and you can't serve up those transactions, then obviously your customer isn't going to be able to purchase that, or the wait time is too long. They'll get frustrated and they'll move on to the next vendor. Really about ensuring you have a resiliency baked into your systems, and also shift from people moving away from testing in production and sort of standing up these environments in a pre-production environment where they can run these sort of chaos injections and work on getting a resiliency, because the last thing any organization wants is one of these events to come out of the blue, take down production. And we've all seen it the last couple of years. We do see that it is a shift in the market, and that's why we have decided to partner with Gremlin and put the introduction out first.
When I talk about chaos, you mentioned resilience. I think that's the key word, because as we move to a DevOps culture and
Mhm.
people take on the roles of site reliability engineers that go between operations and development, that one of the key things they look for is building resilient systems. So there's an emphasis
Yeah,
on resilience. With observability
yeah,
platforms today, it's an emphasis on how resilient a system is. And so the
yeah,
questions are now being asked: how resilient and how well is my system doing? And I think chaos tries to help answer that question. Whereas something can be down because it's under load, under a DDoS
yeah,
attack, a stress
yeah,
test, or whatever. But there's also that element of it was not under load. It was a configuration change that was made and rolled out in a build,
yeah.
and all of a sudden everything's down. And that is just as much of a risk. So even though that's not necessarily performance related, I feel that
Mhm.
that's like chaos is a cousin of performance and load. Would you agree with that?
I would, and it's. I mean, traditionally, performance testing was testing your application. A lot of it was measured by the throughput or the saturation on the system, how quickly your application could respond under load. But as performance testing has matured, it's not just the last mile that happened before something went out the door. It's more team sport. You have developers on the left feeding in. That's why we have LoadRunner developer now to make sure that audience is covered. But performance is a team sport. You may have analysts that are also feeding into your performance, and our tools also support things like HAR file import, where somebody could do something on their system and then make a performance test from something that they've seen real life. So the fact that it's more of a team sport, and also it's about the entire infrastructure, not the application under test. And what you said, there's site resiliency engineers now, and that covers all of the observability platforms. It's not just run a load test for 1,000 users against an application. It's all these different parts of that ecosystem that actually feed into gaining end user experience, really about what actually happens when something does go wrong or the load is too high.
It's almost like we have a new category that's been
Mhm,
created in the realm of testing with resilience. I actually like
mhm,
the term resilience engineering
mhm. Yeah,
versus chaos engineering. But let's talk a little bit about the companies that would could utilize and are
mhm,
requesting this as part of the testing that they do on a regular basis versus just load testing and performance testing. So there's an argument that says you would need a very mature organization to do this, because how many organizations right now are really doing performance and load correctly
yeah,
and preventing outages with just typical load? I mean, we've already got enough problems without trying to
yeah.
introduce more. How do you respond to that when they go, I'm just trying to keep up with technology with what I have now, and all of a sudden you're telling me I've got to start taking down pods on purpose and combining that with load? It
Yeah.
seems kind of complex, and B, it seems like I'm going to need to be a pretty mature organization to do that. Is that fair?
I mean, there is two sides to this argument. I mean, the customers and the people that I'm speaking to at the moment, a lot of people, they are very mature in their practices. They are probably customers with quality center of excellences, so they have a lot of these things already established. So they think that they need to also plug in all of this resiliency, and they may have hundreds of services that maybe bring together this huge platform that they deliver. But on the other side of that, we also have smaller organizations that maybe have to do this, and they have been doing it maybe in the traditional way, and maybe writing processes that kick off batch files that take down maybe an Oracle process or a backend server somewhere. But the thing about that is that's costly to maintain. First, you need to know how to script that, and a lot of times you just can't record that out of the box. So there's some scripting that needs to go on. There's also a real maintenance overhead to that. So if you had to maintain that, or that machine moved to a new namespace or something like that, that's continuously a maintenance and an evolution of keeping that up and running. And you also have the side of that, what happens when the process doesn't exit gracefully or doesn't come back gracefully. Somebody's then going to have to make sure that they have an RDP into that machine. They may need elevated rights to run certain services. So there's a whole thing that goes along with that. So you can do this in traditional performance tests. But what I'm seeing and what I like about Gremlin is that basically all you do is you install your Gremlin agent on that host, and you have a whole plethora of options to you. You can run scans to look for the processes that live on that machine, and then that can be then used as some sort of disruption event. It's really all visual. I mean, the first time I set this up, I think I watched the tutorial that took me 10 minutes. We installed the Gremlin agent, and then I had a test bed that I could then go and spike that CPU or peg that memory at a certain threshold. And it was really simple and easy. And as well, I think it's really visual. If you think of what you're doing traditionally, you have a script that you've maybe created in our VueGen, and you're having to go in and continuously update that, edit that, RDP sessions. Where now all you need is a simple HTTP script that might go and hit your application, and that puts the load on it. And then you just add a disruption event from something you've already pre-configured in Gremlin. And as I said, it's all pretty visual. Everything is there. I think 3 or 4 steps, and you've added a chaos event in Gremlin. And then we just authenticate to that from the controller, and you just add that as, in the controller as part of a normal scenario. And it's really, really easy. And what I like as well, it's not just about enterprises having to pay to adapt this here and now. Now, Gremlin do offer a number of different tiers, and each of these give you additional benefits. But you can try this here and now in the LoadRunner 2022 release, and with the freemium offering that Gremlin gives you, and you can create one team and you can run 5 agents or 5 hosts. So I would encourage every customer to go and have a look at that. And what I would also say is great in that every 2 weeks they run webinars and workshops, and they listen to customers that are attending those, and they help you develop your sort of use cases so that you don't need to come in blind and try and work out. You can tell them what you're trying to do, and they can lead you through these.
I'm assuming that you've had customers over the last year or so request this capability as part of their maturity and a part of what they're doing as far as testing. But I'm curious as to why Gremlin. I mean, I know about Gremlin. They've probably been out there and established longer than some of the others. But
Yeah.
why Gremlin?
Because I think the fact that there's probably two. We've established a great relationship, and we have a great partnership going. In fact, I met Gremlin this morning, and also the fact that there is a freemium offering in straight here. So if a customer wanted to do a proof of concept, they can take LoadRunner Professional, the community edition, which is there for proof of concept purposes, and they can take the freemium offering of Gremlin, which is at no cost, and automatically they can start looking at whether or not chaos or resiliency is right for their organization. And if it is, then there's additional benefits from taking out higher volume of license in LoadRunner Professional, or looking at what Gremlin offering, because they offer customer success managers and all additional layers of different types of services as you go up the tiers. So one of the reasons was customers could consume this right away, and it could be an immediate proof of concept. They get our community edition and they sign up for the Gremlin freemium. Now there is other vendors out there, but Gremlin seemed to be the one that we were hearing about most. The way we listen to our customers is they either interact with us as part of our customer advisory boards, which we do a few times a year. We take the input through our support and our customer success channels, or where we have seen this quite a number of times is we have an open idea exchange where we put our backlog there, our potential backlog, out on our community, and we ask customers to tell us what they want. And then what we do is, if we think it's a good idea, we open it for votes. And usually it's a priority based system. If we have 50 customers voting for this feature, then we really need to take it seriously. And we had lots asking for Chaos, but also Gremlin was way up there.
Awesome. So I understand that you have a demo that you can show with LoadRunner
Yep.
working with Gremlin to show our viewers how that looks. Can you set up that demo of what you're going to show us?
I mightn't run the whole test, but I'll show you the concept about setting it up, doing the authentication, what it looks like in the controller, and then what it looks like in Gremlin, and then show you how you do the analysis and how you use the LoadRunner analysis, which it's one of our key features on our product. And we'll maybe even talk about listening to customers, what do they want to see next, where the future goes with this integration. We have a tool that's called VuGen, and this is virtual user generator. And this is where customers will start out their journey. They'll get this tool either when they procure the software or when they get an evaluation. And this comes with a community license that allows them to build up a performance test up until 50 users. So I've already recorded a script and it's just recorded that same navigation you see here. I just went on to True Client, recorded going through this, signed in as Jojo, did a search, booked a flight, I think to Austin or somewhere like that, checked it out, and then signed off from the application. We have another part of our application which is called a controller. And this is basically which is responsible for you designing your test, setting up the amount of virtual users you want to generate, and then setting up some sort of performance schedule, whether you want them all to go off at once, or you want to introduce pacing, or you want to add multiple scripts and things like that. So if I just add a script, I think it's this guy here. So these are scripts I have just in my repository library, and we okay this. In the new release, we've added this option here, and we've just called it disruption events. And this allows us to then hook in to the Gremlin web service. So what we've did is when you add event, you selected you want to authenticate to a Gremlin web server. Go back into my web server just to show you how this is configured. So really we go into yours and go into, I think it's team settings. Yeah, and go into the API keys. Sorry, yeah. So we need the team ID. So that's my key to authenticate, and then the other is the team ID, which is this guy. And you see here, so any scenarios that we had is up here. Let me just jump in and show you our dashboard. So these are the ones that we have already set up. And add that, so you see that this gets now added as a chaos event that we want to run while we're running that script, the chaos demo, which is just a native script to LoadRunner. So we can set when we start this, and the end time is set because that is the time that's scheduled on that event that we created on Gremlin. So let's just say that we want to start this 30 seconds into the test and save that. So for this test, So what we'll do is we'll just change this to like a 3-minute test or something like that. So let's just schedule that and apply that. So as part of this 30 seconds in of this script running, we will then trigger that memory attack event through the Gremlin services. And we'll just see how that has a direct correlation into some of the other measurements that we're collecting. So let me just schedule it to run. So this is the runtime interface that that customers will see. So let me just show you here. So you can see here, if we go into the Gremlin server, we see that we've kicked off that, and you can see that spinning away. So if there was multiple runs running here, you're able to see it on both sides of the coin. You will see it in the controller on the LoadRunner side, and you'll also see it on the Gremlin web server here. So let me jump back into the controller. So you can see here, this is just our normal charts that we do and some of the standard measurements that we collect. Go into results and analyze results. This invokes the LoadRunner analysis tool. Okay, so basically this chart we're seeing here, what I did is I run that same chaos demo script, and I didn't add a Gremlin event to that, just to measure the baseline or the average transaction response time for that user. And you can see here, average transaction response time is it goes from so the minimum is 6.8 or something like that, or 6.3, and the highest response time that we got back was just under 13, so 12.9. So what I did is I then run that same test that you see me just run there a moment ago with adding that memory attack event, and which basically pegged the CPU at 100% for the 60-second duration. The average transaction response time, so it started at 6.9. Then during the memory attack, which I think started 30 seconds in, which is probably when you're seeing the line here, it went the whole way up to 37. I mentioned on the other a moment ago that we have added a new chart. This one should have, chaos events. So you can see, so that event started actually almost immediately and run for close to 2 minutes, because we have the ability to merge different charts and overlay them so that you can get to a root cause analysis. This is the average transaction response time with the overlay of the chaos event. So you can see, look at the sharp increase in transaction response times during that test. Then when the chaos event drops off at around 2 minutes, your application starts to recover in the normal flow of your 6, 7, 8 second transaction response time, gets back into its normal plateau. That's really simple to do in LoadRunner. You basically go in here and you say select merge graphs. We just say we want to overlay this, the amount of users we have, and we can then go in and add more. So we can then add chaos events into that. And then you can start to see more of a picture. You can start to see that here's the chaos event starting here. Now that's a really simple use case, but there could be hundreds of other different options that customers could invoke multiple of these. We also have the ability to also generate a report from this, HTML report, which is a little bit nicer on the eye than having to look in a thick client, and any of those overlays that we have now added. So you can go and see, here's your chaos event. We can then have a look at that where I charted these events against the running users. We then added the chaos events here, and then you can see how this becomes more valuable, because you can then share that to other stakeholders. You can open it in Excel and do other things and overlay it with other metrics that you may be collecting.
So David, thanks for sharing that demo with us. Is there any other places that people can go to and find out more information about this?
Okay, yeah, good question. So we just did a demo or a webinar, a joint webinar between Micro Focus and Gremlin. It will be available for replay consumption, and I can give you the link to that. It's on the brighttalk.com platform. And I also know that Gremlin in the next couple of weeks are looking to deliver a workshop on this as well. So we'll probably have one of their solution engineers demoing LoadRunner and the integration and helping customers build up use cases, because they're the experts in the types of attacks and scenarios that they would recommend.
Any other things that you want to share with our viewers before we go?
I'm really happy that we've got this integration, and I'd really encourage all of our customers to go in and take a look. If you're a LoadRunner customer, you can go and consume the freemium offering of Gremlin. Go and see if it's right for your organization. I'm 100% convinced you will find use cases that you can apply this. And I would love to hear more. I mean, this is just phase one. We have started this in LoadRunner Professional, and then the idea is, like most of our integrations, we then have these as a service that the rest of the family could consume. So the idea is that all of these new integrations and the chaos will be consumed throughout the year, hopefully in the later releases of Enterprise and Cloud.
Great. I'll be following the progress there. Thanks again, David, for being on the podcast today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Scott.
Pretty handy demo there. Thank you, David, for being on the show once again. I'd like to hear if any of you have actually used this integration with LoadRunner yet. If you have, I'd like to hear your feedback on it. You can always reach me at my website at scottmoore.consulting. There's a link for my website, my LinkedIn profile, as well as my Twitter profile, Load Tester, and you can always email me at help@scottmoore.consulting. If you like this kind of content, make sure that you like and subscribe my YouTube channel. It helps me understand if I'm doing something right. And always love to hear your feedback. We're going to be talking more about chaos and resiliency in my other show, the Performance Tour, which comes out monthly. But we'll also have other guests with other chaos testing products on here. So looking forward to seeing this segment of the market of resiliency kind of mature over the next 12 to 18 months, and I'm sure you are too. So for today's show, this is Scott Moore and the SMC Journal Podcast saying thank you for watching and bye-bye.